Hello guys, I am Effie, your host. So today I am back with another video in which I am going to give a review on another book that you might be like. I like this book as that the book which I am going to read or I am going to give a review on it is about the Christmas. As you guys know that Christmas is near, so I just wanted to give a review on Christmas books so that you guys could enjoy your Christmas by reading or by listening Christmas books. Okay, so these types of books we should have to read on the festive seasons, I think. So the book which I am going to read today is Christmas Every Day, and this book is written by Beth Moran. I always love a Christmas feel good film or book during the festive season, as I told you guys. So couldn't wait to read this when for you guys. It was a traditional festive tale with Jenny moving to a new area after love has gone wrong and making new friends to have adventures with after arriving. Obviously, not everything runs smoothly, and there are some funny and emotional highs and lows along the way. Okay, so before any delay, let's move forward. By the way, this life affirming, joyful, and tender, this book, I'm just talking about it. Beth Moran has written the perfect Christmas story to brighten up even the darkest winter's evening. In it, we going to read about Jenny when Jerry inherits her estranged grandmother's cottage in Sherwood Forest. She has nothing to lose. No money, no job, no friends, no family to speak of, and zero self-respect. Things can only get better. When the house had been described as like something out of a fairy tale, I had been picturing Snow White's cottage or a quaint gingerbread house, minus the evil witch whom I had left behind in Edinburgh. Not a shrunken, courtier version of Sleeping Beauty's derelict outhouse. And in my storybook, there hadn't been an old pram, two sagging armchairs, and a turquoise toilet blocking the driveway. I peered through the taxi window, trying to kid myself it would look better once I was out of the car, or it had stopped raining, or if I took my glasses off. The driver pulled up in front of our rusted mangle, yanking open the door. I tumbled out into the freezing January rain, slipping and sliding round to the car boot. Hauling out my suitcase, followed by a rucksack, I stumbled out of the way just in time to avoid injury, but not a generous splattering of filthy spray from the reviving wheels. Wiping a smear of mud off my glasses with a sodden sleeve, I stared at my new home. A semi-detached old woman's cottage. The grey plaster, frontage streaked with grime, slumped chimney, and patchy roof confirmed it hadn't worn the years well. I squelched through the puddles, rucksack on my back, hand-me-down mulberry suitcase dragging behind, and peered in through the ivy-smoothed front window. Rummaging in my jacket pocket for the key, I gave up attempting to make out shapes in the gloom beyond. I wiped the worst of the dirt from the keyhole, congratulating myself for having had the foresight to have the utilities reconnecting before I arrived, and forced the key in, slowly wiggling it until it locked. I pushed against the door. Nothing, not even a rattle. Turning the key back to the original position, I tried again. As water ran in icy rivulets down my face and up my sleeves, I did everything I could to make the door budge. Pounding, shoulder barging, kicking, taking a slippery running charge like the cops in films. After a while, determined not to start crying, I dumped my luggage and precariously stepped along the front of the house to see if I could get around the back. More bushes, the rain dripping off 2-inch thorns. I glanced over at the adjoining cottage. There none of the windows were cracked, and the garden didn't look as though it had been abandoned by a rag and bone man. Maybe I could sleep in there instead. Just for tonight. According to my mother, the whole building had lain empty for years. There wasn't much demand for cottages in the middle of nowhere, unless done up as holiday lets, and no one wanted to holiday next door to a scrap heap. I cautiously moved closer, trying to peek beyond the closed blinds. Before looking through the letterbox, but the approaching dusk made it too dark to see. I tramped along a brick path around to the back. Here things appeared much the same. A wooden picnic bench sat forlornly on a patch of peat-riddled gravel about 6 feet square. Beyond that, my half of the building was nearly hidden, where the forest had encroached right up to the house in a twist of branches and brambles. I might be able to squeeze through to the back door. I should at least attempt to squeeze through to the back door. But then again, it would probably rip my jeans, and this was the only pair that fitted. And if I scratched my face, it would be harder to find a job, and then how could I survive here? I probably didn't even have any phone reception, so I couldn't tell anyone if I tripped on a stray root and impaled myself on the thorns. I quickly checked my phone, not wondering even for a second whether Richard had been trying to send me any groveling messages, admitting it was all a terrible mistake. See, no signal. It would be reckless and foolish to force my way into that tangle of spikes. I shuddered, glancing at the shadows looming around me. I imagined the kinds of animals that prowled Sherwood Forest once darkness fell. They had found my broken body, drawn to fresh meat by the scent of blood leaking from 1,000 puncture wounds. I wouldn't stand a chance. It took only a few tries to smash the wood, encircling the log to bits using a thick branch and the force of my anger. Nicely warmed up, somewhat exhilarated by my discovery, I stepped inside, maybe a teensy bit unnerved by my neighbor's comments about only lasting a night. I decided to put off investigating the house until morning. In front of me appeared to be an excellent place to unroll my sleeping bag and seek a very welcome oblivion. I awoke to the sound of scuffling. Something brushed against my cheek, even with my eyes closed. I could sense the presence of something other. Fumbling for my glasses, I heard another scratching, skittering noise, blood pounding in my skull. I carefully put my glasses on and snapped my eyes open. Oh, rat? Rats? More rats? 3 seconds later, a rat sprinted 4 inches past my face and disappeared into the shadows. I returned to find a huge, shiny soap propped up against one of the bushes, which looked decidedly less bushy than when I had left. Glancing up at the ominous clouds now rolling in across the late afternoon sky, I swallowed the last piece of chocolate along with my pride and picked up the saw. The blade snapped off on the second to last branch. But as the first drops of sleet began to fall, I had no energy left to worry about that just then. Squeezing my way through the remaining spikes, I finally entered my new home, wheezing and gasping. I very quickly stepped out again. I could almost feel Mac laughing through the walls. Gritting my teeth, I leaned back around the door and felt for a light switch. The grandmother I heard nothing about until a few weeks ago, Charlotte Meadows, had passed away 6 years earlier. Mom only found out when the lawyers had tracked her down months later to inform her she had inherited the cottage. So I had expected the cottage to need a clean, to have a few mice, spiders, maybe even a bat or two. I knew the roof might be missing a few tiles and was fully prepared to throw on a lick of paint. But seriously, how bad could our house get in 6 years? I decided the best thing to do was finish my final ever coffee while admiring the view, enjoy the birds soaring overhead, and not think about at all about the swanky flat where I had used to live, the swanky law firm where I had worked as a personal assistant, the swanky lawyer who I had assisted a little too personally, or my swanky sister who had been the reason I had moved to Scotland and the reason I left. After a terrible night, the sound of banging on the door woke me. Scrambling to get out of the bath, I caught my feet in the tangled sheet, tipping me headlong onto the floor. Untwisting myself while trying not to lose my jogging bottoms in the process, I heard the door open and a man's voice call my name. Oh, pants! Only one guess for who that could be. Managing to pull myself up, I snatched my glasses off the windowsill, straightened my clothes and sprinted out of the bathroom, hoping at the very least to prevent him mounting the stairs. We collided in the hallway, crashing into mannequin Diana, who thankfully broke our fall. Righting himself, Mac hauled me to my feet. So, my rescue bin bag job hadn't quite turned out as planned. The side nearest Mac's house, of one of the holes, the hole nearest Mac's house, half peeled away, creating a sort of water slide, beginning at the hole and flowing towards, yes, Mac's house. The water had run down the bin bag, poured onto the floor at the edge of the dividing wall, found a massive crack to gather in, and presumably seeped through the room's beneath. Are you a spy? I set the tea on one of the less manky attic boxes. Mackie glanced down, holding a sheet of wood against the roof, two nails in his mouth. Okay, so if you told me, would you have to kill me? I said. Okay, here, her grumpy, her means by Jamie, obviously, but decidedly handsome new neighbor Mac has a habit of bestowing unsolicited good deeds on her. And when Jenny is welcomed into our rather unusual book club, life seems to finally be getting more interesting. Instead of reading, the members pledge to complete individual challenges before Christmas. From finding new love, learning to bake, to completing our daredevil bucket list, Jenny can't resist joining in. And soon a year of friendship and laughter, tears and regrets unfolds in the most unexpected ways. Okay. Still embarrassed by Mac seeing the state of the kitchen and my makeshift food preparation area upstairs, I decided to forego my morning walk to the common and spend the day working on the cupboards and countertops. I lugged the fridge an inch at a time outside, dumping it next to the mattress, and began sorting through the stack of pots and crockery, deciding what to keep and what could be sold. Scoring, sorting, dumping, anything that was chipped, cracked or broken, and plunging the rest in scalding hot water turned out to be a great way to scrub away some shame at the same time. I kept going until my arms couldn't lift another pan. There was a chicken pecking at the neat gravel path by her feet. To the side, a vegetable garden, runner bean vines wrapped around a row of canes, overflowing hanging baskets either side of the door. Tears pricked my eyes as I gazed at the hopes and the dreams contained in that picture. The cottage had been a home back then, without a single weed or crack or smear. I propped the photograph up against the kitchen window, more determined than ever to make it a home once again. Kiko's house was a modern detached squeezed into a patch of land between two cottages. Inside, I perched on the pristine sofa and scanned the wall of family photographs while Kiko fetched our drinks. We chatted about how I had started working for Elon and a bit about her children while Hannah played on a mat on the floor. Kilo seemed nice, if a little tense. She asked about my plans for the rest of the week. I glossed over the fact that my current plans started and ended with survive. Dawson and Maddie greeted me in the playground that afternoon with resignation. The triplets were too busy fighting invisible alien koalas to take much notice of who had picked them up. The bedroom door wouldn't open. I gave it a shove and a rattle and called through the wooden barrier. Boys, let me in, please. Silence. I gave a good loud knock on the door. Why won't the door open? What made that massive bang? I heard a quick scuffling noise, followed by more silence. I can hear you in there. Open the door. I knocked again, hard enough to bruise my knuckles. Francis had none of Tesa's qualms, weaving between the piles of junk and skidding right up to the front door before repeatedly tooting the horn on her pick-up truck until I hurried around the side of the house. With cropped white hair and tiny blue eyes peeking out from a broad map of wrinkles, she looked so frail as she stretched across the seat that I feared she might snap in two. Inside her tweed suit, I hesitated briefly, and she yanked on my wrist so firmly that I scraped an inch of skin off my shin while hoisting myself up. The rest of the club was already inside. The man made sure Francis had a seat before introducing himself as Jamie. He coughed twice, tried in vain to smooth a fluffy clump of hair sticking out on one side of his head, and said hello to Sarah before helping her load glasses onto a tray. Everyone else sat down around two tables pushed together, covered in a red cloth with a dinky vase of flowers. In the center, Florence curled up underneath. Kiko and Ellen waved and grinned hello before bowing their heads back in their notebooks. We can set a target to finish our goals by the Christmas party. We sat there for a moment thinking about that. I like it, Frances said. I'm not sure. Ashley picked at a loose thread on her cardigan. I can't think of a goal. I say we go for it, Sarah said. We could call it the Get Yourself Alive Worth Telling Stories About My Christmas Book Club Challenge. The Christmas Book Club Challenge, for short, Jamie added. Well, let's give it a month and see how it goes. Ellen said, and if it can avoid wine being spilled or blood, words. Everyone voted yes, we could give it a go. And I had to say this, the Christmas Book Club Challenge was anything but boring. The Monday after the holidays, I spent the morning at Ellen's, baking another cake. As I swung back out of the garden gate, Fisher slunk up in his car, eyebrows bristling through the open window. Why was Fisher so keen to buy my cottage? And how did he know I had no appliances? Did Ellen know? Had she asked him to make me an offer? Didn't she know I couldn't begin to think about letting go of the only link to my family that didn't involve me having to actually speak or otherwise interact with them? There was a horrible silence while Max stared at me. I held my breath and bit my lip to prevent jabbering. He had to know this was important, or I wouldn't have asked. And the only reason I asked him, and not Ellen, or Sarah, or Kiko, was because he was the only one who knew about my dire living conditions. I think Mac must have seen something despairing in my eyes, because instead of laughing and slamming the door in my face or joking about how I had probably destroyed his computer, he didn't even roll his eyes. I could just come in and explore the secret innards of your mysterious house. The next Monday, I had a major work-related breakthrough, which led to a second, far more revealing breakthrough. That breakthrough just about broke my heart. The first thing was I got all 5 kids to school on time. With 50 spare seconds to boot, that morning I had been a machine. Toast, cereal, bags, outfits, lunch boxes, untangling myself from sea monster net trap, locating runaway caterpillar, nailed them all. Hurrying round to his classroom door, I found him not yet in sight. My heart stopped right before it cracked. It killed me inside because I had been that kid. Still felt I was that woman. I had scuttled through most of my life. Every action an apology for inflicting my existence on the world. And during those dark nights after Oxford, when my broken soul had seemed to be plummeting down a bottomless pit of despair and hopelessness, I had at times considered that not existing was perhaps the better option. And to see Dawson, clever, interesting, thoughtful Dawson, with a family who loved and cherished him, to see him caught and hurting tore me up more than I could have imagined. Now, I dreamed about 3 things over and over again. washing machine, oven, and fridge. Pulling an envelope out from the drawer by my bed and counting the money I had squirreled away inside. I wondered which one I wanted most, but soon I had have bills to pay. I need a cheap computer so I could start selling some things, to hire a skip, and who knew what other problems were hiding in the hoard. I might have to give in and hire pest control if the scrabbling above my head got any worse. I put the envelope back, shut my dreams away in the drawer, and tried to be happy for those which had so unexpectedly come true. Back working on Wednesday, I was still rushing about trying to sort coats and find enough pairs of shoes for the right feet when Dawson announced he would walk by himself. Slamming the front door before I could reply. At school, I toyed with peeping around the corner to see where he was, but knew it would do nothing towards earning his trust. Instead, I waited until that afternoon, finding him in his bedroom. "I'm busy." He clearly was bent over his desk, concentrating on a sheet of paper. "I know, but I am worried." No reply. I had decided the best way to take care of the Cameron kids was to emulate their parents and do the exact opposite of the way my own had done it. So I loved them. I declined dinner at the Camerons that evening, whizzing home to eat my own home-cooked food. I ate so much I had to unpop 2 buttons on my jeans. Then I had to strain them closed again. When I looked at the remaining food and realized I had nowhere to store it, so had better find an alternative location. Why was he so interested in Charlotte Meadows' old cottage? I ripped up the note and got back to my washing. 40 minutes of wringing and squeezing later, I picked the bits of note out of the bin and pieced them back together, copying Fisher's number onto a scrap of water. One day the house would be finished. If I was still living without basing appliances then, I might just consider Fisher's offer. After all, I had never even met Charlotte Meadows. Staying here out of sentimentality would be stupid and pointless, right? Perhaps I would feel more sentimental about a decent kitchen and living closer to civilization. I blew my nose, wiped the tears, now mysteriously falling, and got back to work. That evening, we convened the first meeting for the Christmas Book Club Challenge. Once everyone had a slice of warm apple cake, Ellen called us to order. Good to see you all here. I hope you have been enjoying your challenge and have some stories to share. Who's going first? Sarah volunteered. She had been dying to tell us all about her first love life. Date. So, my challenge is to find a man who's not a lazy, selfish, untrustworthy waster, she announced. That shouldn't be too hard, Ellen said. My turn. I took a big gulp of water and sat up straighter. My challenge is finding out about my family. As you know, a few weeks ago, I moved into my grandmother's cottage. What I haven't told you is that I never met her. I know nothing about her or my grandfather. And I don't know why. It's weird to live in a place where strangers know more about my own family than I do. But for today, I'll start by telling you why even moving here has been a challenge. And believe me, just talking about this is a challenge in itself. Stop it! I hummed with irritation, anger, humiliation, and a smidgen of joy. Excuse me? Mac's face appeared dark and foreboding in the forest shadows. How many times do I have to tell you to stop this? I was flapping my arms around like a crazy woman. The kind of person who named the mice infesting her home. I don't particularly appreciate people hammering on my door in the evening and yelling at me. Meg looked past me into the night beyond and huffed out a long sigh. I don't like being ordered about, and I don't know what the hell you are talking about. So, bye. He started to shut the door. The next morning brought with it more bad weather, leaving the common cafe empty of customers. I pottered about behind the counter while Sarah played Kerplunk with Edison. This gave me plenty of time to practice my opening line in my head. So, Sarah, have you ever thought there might be someone worth dating at book club? Sarah, you must have noticed that Jamie is completely nuts about you. Look, Sarah, you are a lovely woman. He is a lovely man. When he isn't kicking people's butts. We had a reasonably successful morning. Although Sarah was the only one of us managing to hold the line. Once custom had trickled off towards the lunchtime, we sold a nearby trader all the leftover items for around 50 quid. I returned home with enough to cover the roofer's bill, with a reasonable amount left over. Snuggling into my duvet that night, I imagined all the ways I would spend my spare cash. A new pair of jeans, a slap up meal, a skip. Today I could see new Jenny. Go for it. Independent. Can do Jenny. Emerging from behind the outgrown hairstyle and hand me down coat. And new Jenny required a decent phone. New Jenny had numbers to add to her phone contacts that weren't that of her sister's housekeeper. New Jenny blew the rest of the money on a pair of silver shoes with the highest heels she had ever seen. And now she was going to have to go to that darn wedding, or she had just spent her last penny on shoes she had never wear. That evening, still high on adrenaline, the thrill of new possibilities and town center, car fumes, I fired off a wedding acceptance email to Richard's secretary. Ta-da! New Jenny and her plus one would be delighted to celebrate the wedding of her evil twin and ex-secret boyfriend. My phone beeped with a message. You terminated the call before I informed you that all guests must provide a photograph for the guest book. Black and white. Head and shoulders portrait. Minimum resolution 300 pixel per inches by 6 June mm. Great. Now all I needed to do was find a black and white high resolution portrait photograph of an imaginary man. I could ask the actual Mac, but I had been willing to bet no such photograph even existed. I found out later I would have lost that bet. I had an idea. It might turn out to be a completely rubbish one, but might just be better than doing nothing. While Will had been coming home early once a week to take Dawson to see his friends, I couldn't bear watching Dawson drag himself to school every morning. Eyes on the ground, his spirit trooping behind him. If he walked into his new school like that in September, things were only going to get worse. Dawson desperately needed a boost. I had a boostastic idea, I hoped. I declined a lift home. It was a clear night, and those old photos had conjured a twinkle in Will's and Ellen's eyes that made me figure they wanted some alone time. I needed some alone time myself to think about fake photo plan C, Mac. Maybe I should just ask him if I could take one. I reckoned that confidential laptop of his could take a decent picture. I considered the likelihood of Mac adopting a cheerful, attractive pose while I snapped away. And then I heard it, a noise in the trees to my right. The fence separating the footpath from the forest suddenly seemed like the flimsiest, tiniest, most pointless barrier possible. My ragged breaths echoed off the tree trunks. The headlamp penetrated about 3 meters in front of me. To the side, beyond the fence, there was only blackness and footsteps crunching through the undergrowth. It must be an animal, I repeated in my head. It's following the light. And then it coughed deep. Either a man or the kind of woman you didn't want chasing after you in the middle of a forest in the pitch black. Another couple of minutes, the path curved. I braced myself, kept the bike as close to the left as I could. Thought about turning back or abandoning the bike and ledging it into the forest on the other side. Finding a tree to hide behind and calling for help. Calling who? Jenny? I screamed in my head. And telling them what? That I can hear footsteps? That there's something moving about in the forest. Throwing myself inside, hands shaking so hard it took 3 horrible attempts to get the key in the lock. I slammed the door, locked it. I didn't have Mac's number, of course, so couldn't call him. I felt too scared to back downstairs, let alone outside to knock on his door. Should I phone the police to report that a man in the woods laughed? The only thing my stubborn self proved was that I was too stupid and stubborn for my own good. As we reached the tree line, my semi-paralyzed limbs could no longer pedal fast enough to stay upright, causing me to slowly topple into a pile of nettles. Nettles I hadn't seen because my eyes, wiser than my idiot brain, refused to remain open and watch the impending spectacle unfold. And you are not leaving me here alone in the dark while I am unable to breathe, let alone defend myself from an even lunatic. Okay. He shifted a little closer, turning his body slightly so I almost leaned on him. He grinned, his eyes glinting in the moonlight. Do you want me to come in and do a quick search for beasties? I opened my mouth, working hard to make sure the right words came out. Let me guess, you are fine, right? I nodded. Night, then. Try not to have nightmares. Meg waited while I went inside and shut the door. I dragged my confused, shattered body to bed and fell asleep before I could worry about my nightmares. PC Brenda popped round the next day to tell me they had not found anything to be concerned about. While they had kept checking in on the words, she was certain it was kids messing about. She did suggest I rethought traveling alone at night all the time. You could break your neck on a branch or skid on a patch of mud and go head over heels. Impale yourself on a fence post. Believe me, Jenny, these things do happen. Nice. I messaged Mac to say Ellen would drop me home. He replied the next day, car ready, key in the ignition, petrol tank full, be careful. And when I replied by asking how much I owed him for the battery, I got the long-winded reply of £45. School and therefore my work had a week's break at the end of May. The Saturday, 2 June, was my birthday. Way back in January, Will and Ellen had required my date of birth as part of their background check. And being two of the kindest, most optimistic people ever, they had noted it on their calendar even back then. The kids are throwing you a party, Ellen had told me. It's not going to be the height of sophistication. Balloon animals, a bouncy castle, and rainbow jelly are involved. Oh, and Dawson is preparing a magic show. But hopefully, a fire pit, summer cocktails, and Kiko's karaoke machine later in the evening will bring us back from the brink of full-on kids' party hell. It sounds perfect. I cleared my throat, blew my nose, and tried very hard to pretend I wasn't crying about being thrown a children's birthday party. For the first time ever, I was going to spend my birthday with other people. People who I think might like me, love me even. My voice cracked. The kids have baked a birthday cake. Maddie has made past the parcel, and Dawson has been practicing his tricks. There's pancakes with bacon and maple syrup for my birthday breakfast, and I have made a giant chocolate trifle. Okay, Jenny, bring it down an octave. And without meaning to sound presumptuous, there might have been a present and some cards and singing happy birthday and fun and happiness. I gulped in a huge honking sob. There would be happiness. What are you doing out here anyway? I saw you leave. Thought you might try to swim it. He blinked. Ellen invited me, but I had plans this weekend too. I'm sorry I called you a hermit. Don't be. I have been living a hermit-like existence the past few months. And I'm sorry for ranting on like a mad woman. It's bit of a thing for me, birthdays. Though not quite as bad as Christmas. At least on my birthday, the rest of the world aren't celebrating while I am feeling crap. Now, Christmas, I really hate. I gave a small shudder. You hate Christmas? I don't hate Christmas in principle. I just happen to have hated every Christmas so far. Now that is really sad. I need to get into some dry clothes. We made it back towards the house where I trudged inside, had a long hot bath, and in blatant disregard to it being 11 in the morning, crawled into my softest pajamas and pulled the duvet over my head. I went to sleep praying for a birthday, road clearing miracle. On reflection, I am rather grateful God said no to that prayer. I lied. I don't hate Christmas anymore. He watched me, the hint of a smile on his lips. The two Christmas I have had this year were both just about perfect. I dropped to a whisper because I spent them with you. The smile burst into a grin. Yes, I will spend another Christmas with you. That's a good idea. I have got a lot of Christmases I want to ask you about. I unlocked the cottage door, stamped the snow off my boots, and shrugged out of my coat in welcoming warmth. As I turned to face him, Meg wrapped me up in his arms, and I was home. Okay, so here our story ends of this book, Christmas Every Day. I hope you guys enjoyed reading or listening Christmas Every Day. If you did, please leave a review in the comment section. If you'd like to gift a copy or you guys want to buy for yourself, you can buy it from our website, whose link is given in the description box. Actually, I enjoyed the story on the whole, and there were enough twists and surprises to encounter the typical predictability of this genre of book. I did find myself rolling my eyes at some Jenny's reactions, and she slightly irritated me at times. She seemed willfully ignorant and ignoring what was right in front of her to feel sorry for herself. However, the ending redeemed it all, and I enjoyed the friendship she developed as she found her feet in the village. If you guys want a feel good festive read, you can buy your copy from our website. Okay, so I am going to end this video here because I finished my book. We will meet in the next video with the next book. You can also tell me which book I should have to read next, which types of books you guys liked, the horror ones, the suspicious one, about the murder stories, or about the festivity. So whichever you guys wanted to listen, I can read that for you. Okay, we will meet in the next video. Till then, take care. Goodbye.